Welcome to Work-Life Balance for Attorneys in partnership with Community Legal Services. My name is Jesse Lyon.
I'm Zach Dodson.
And we're happy to be here. So as we get into this topic, a little bit about us. Why are we here? Why are we talking about this? Specifically us, because I don't know if you've looked at me. I certainly don't look like an attorney. It's because I'm not one.
Me either.
We are trauma therapists. So I own a private practice called Lyon Counseling, which works specifically with complex trauma and a lot of dissociative disorders as well. And together we've co-founded a company called Trauma Focused Hypnotherapy, which provides resources for anybody who's interested in understanding the way that emotions and the subconscious mind play a role in our everyday life. And Zach, you've got an extensive background in this topic, in these things. Could you talk to us a little bit about some of your experience?
Yeah, I'm the owner of HD Counseling, Mentality Today, two organizations that help private practices build and grow from a mental health perspective. And one of the things that I'm constantly teaching young therapists, young practice owners is what does it actually mean to have a work-life balance and how to do that.
It's $1 million question today, Zach.
Yeah.
You know, and I say that kind of on purpose because there are plenty of life coaches out there selling kind of the miracle cure for your work-life balance. And I just, from my experience working with people and their mental health struggles, it just doesn't work that way. And so today we're going to talk about, really from our perspective, the things that have worked for us, the things that have worked for our clients, kind of coming from the most extreme circumstances, like with trauma.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. Let's introduce this work-life balance. When you think about work-life balance, there's some words on the screen, but just from your personal story, Zach, where do you start with that concept? Like, how do you define it? How do you begin to think about it?
Well, I think that there's a very important thing to be understood before we get into any of the content, and that is the difference between like a specific action, something that you can do, and having the right mindset. And so if you could take anything from today, I'd really like you to take or try your best at just understanding that it doesn't have to be the traditional mindset of work-life balance, but your mindset is going to be the biggest factor in how you feel about that binary.
So you're almost saying that like the mindset comes before the actions.
It has to.
If you do the actions without the mindset, you might be doing the right things but still miss it.
There's a lot of really great books out there that say do this, this, and this, and oftentimes that will work as a tool for a very specific time or very specific space, but inevitably it's like a coping mechanism that somebody is just like applying to a situation, and the mindset needs to change.
Why do you think it is that we focus so much on the behaviors rather than the mindset? I mean, the way that we're presenting, today's topic is very different.
It's easy.
Yeah, so behaviors are much easier.
Yeah, I can measure it. I can see it. I can learn about what this person is doing. Well, and if they're successful, then what they're doing must be applicable. And it's like, no, not necessarily. What they're doing is applicable and making them successful in that context. There's probably some principles that you can learn from that context, but just doing those behaviors is probably not going to help you as much as changing the mindset.
Yeah, but see, even the way you said that is like learning from their behaviors can teach you a concept. And so even behind like observing and analyzing and documenting the behaviors that are effective is the end goal of identifying a concept that is successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because everyone's context is going to be different. Maybe not even like in the real world of my context of my business is different than somebody else, but my internal context as well, the way that my brain works. The things that do recharge me or do drain me. For some people, they may err on a little bit of this side of work-life balance. Other people may be on this side, and that depends upon the individual who's in front of them. I mean, I know with my employees, I ask them that question of like, well, what's your goal? I was like, forget about all the business. Forget about, the goals and the stuff. Like, what do you want out of life? Because I've got some people, they want a big paycheck. They got some big goals. They want to buy a house. They want to retire early. That's their priority. Other people, it's like, I want a job that enables me to spend more time with my family.
That's great.
Your career is going to look different. And that's fantastic, right? It's like, what's going to make you happy? And so though you may have all the right behaviors, if you don't have the concept, if you don't have the mindset behind it to make it successful, I don't think you're going to get there no matter how hard you try, which can lead to feelings of failure
Yeah, and burnout.
and burnout. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, even in this, there's such a spectrum that doing those things that you're just talking about, even for your practice,
Yeah.
which has a very strong culture and a very strong community over the course of the practice, but there's also a different feel to each one of your offices.
This is true.
I think that you could say a lot more about your practice in that regards, but my different offices, locations, their community and culture is so different, which means that the goals have to be different, which means that everything with how the people communicate is different. And for me to encourage healthy work-life balance, I need to meet those needs for each one of the offices. There's not a template that works for that.
Yeah. When I think about these behaviors too, and that's why I'll have that conversation with those people that I mentor and supervise. I'll have that conversation, forget everything else, like talk with me human to human. What do you want out of life? Because I think, and especially in the legal profession, it can be easy to try and prove success or try and prove accomplishment or achievements through behaviors. But if you're focused on that, you're going to miss the underlying things that are going to bring you satisfaction out of life. And so, I make this presentation with you together, and I think about work-life balance, I cringe a little bit because it's such a common thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like overdone. And I think that's a shame because it's such a part of our everyday life that it can feel overdone because we're talking about behaviors when actually the philosophy and the concepts behind it are really exciting and I think empowering.
Very.
Yeah. So as you come to this, what do you think is the helpful mindset to have about work-life balance? I mean, you made some allusion to things like find out what motivates you, find out what brings you happiness. But do you have sort of a concept when you're working with a client, maybe specifically trauma, that you come to this topic with?
I think it's threefold. So, like you're kind of talking about, it's like what's the goal?
Yeah.
What is the goal? And continuing to process that and continuing to make it so that is like renewed. So it's like this is what I think that my goal is. This is what I think that my goal is now. I think that in the future my goal is going to stay the same. But coming back to that all the time.
Yes. Kind of revisiting that goal.
Yeah.
The second, we change.
Right.
I certainly have.
That gets to the second one, which is authenticity. Is this something is this goal or these goals something that is specific to your core self, or is this something that you think that you should do because somebody told you that you should do it, or somebody alluded or suggested, and somebody could be anything from parents to social norms.
Yeah.
But is this authentic to you, or is it not? And the last one is something to do with like what are the physical constraints there.
You got to live in the real world.
Yeah, I think that that's a big one when it comes to work-life balance. Is everybody wants to do what they're supposed to do, what they're supposed to do, be the person that they're supposed to be, make a lot of money, and not have to work at all. And so the real life constraints are like, can you get paid for doing what you love the most?
Yeah.
Or there are other things that need to be addressed that need to be taken into consideration in the work-life balance.
Yeah.
I hate doing paperwork. And so therefore my resistance to paperwork needs to be in the conversation of work-life balance.
Yes. Where some people who love paperwork, they're
Sure.
like, I don't have to talk to anybody. I can just balance some spreadsheets and write some things up. That's great. Oh, their work-life balance is going to look dramatically different than yours.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, what you were saying there with those 3 points reminds me of the well-documented truth that in corporate America, individuals will get promoted until they are at a level of incompetence. Because of,
Sure.
Well, you're supposed to climb the ladder. You're supposed to be successful. I do want you to be successful, but I think the goalpost of what successful is we got to look at it a little bit critically. You know, and so they see that, right? Like a good salesperson then gets promoted to shift manager. But because they were a good salesperson, they're a horrible shift manager.
Yeah.
Right? And then they get promoted from shift manager, if they can make it, up to like account manager. And then they just keep going up until they get to the point where it's like, you are absolutely incompetent. You can't do this, so you stop getting promoted. And so then at every level of the job is an individual who is incompetent at that level. And that's where they stop and they become, oh, we got, this district manager, but he's a moron.
Right. Well, and we all know how like the trend of flat hierarchies or corporate structures went a couple years ago. Because the reaction to that was to just say like everybody's going to be at the same level, and
that doesn't work either.
That doesn't work either.
No.
I'm exaggerating, obviously, to prove a point, but the mindset behind that is, what are we actually good at, and what is the real world, and is it authentic?
So I'm hearing a bit of a pull out a journal, sit down with a cup of coffee, watch the waves come in on the beach, and have a moment of self-reflection. Figure out what's really important to you in life.
Maybe.
I think you might go about that a little bit different.
Yes.
But hey, to each their own flavor. Attorneys, though, specifically encounter a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
That make this work-life balance really difficult. I think one that comes to my mind is because of the pace, because of the grueling schedule, and the constant deadlines, it makes that like request that you're saying for self-reflection difficult. It has to be, I think, much more intentional. You know, if I had a 9 to 5, maybe on my drive home at 5 when I don't have any paperwork to do, I don't have a looming client phone call because they're going to call me at 9:30 p.m. because that's the only time they can talk to me. Well, there's not a built-in time for self-reflection about, well, am I actually happy? That may be a sobering moment to ask yourself, are you actually happy?
Well, and not only that, I may not want to have that conversation because that's going to challenge my ability to do something else that is very important to me, like winning, moving up, being successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I talk to attorneys on the other side of that too who feel, I don't know if this is a smaller sort of subset of attorneys or if it's a larger one. I gotta imagine it's kind of equal, but those attorneys who really love crushing it in their field. And they love the aggressive fights inside of the courtroom and the way that you have to maneuver and like play this chess. And, you know, so for them, they really deeply enjoy the job and they can get frustrated that other people don't want to move at that pace. And so there's this other type of frustration with work-life balance that the things that do genuinely bring them happiness don't match with their peers. And so I maybe a point to note and worth mentioning that it is kind of a spectrum. There are some people who are way overworking it, and there's some people who feel a little bit guilty about how much they enjoy just kind of crushing it. Like brings them a sense of satisfaction and real deep joy.
Well, and the point there is for that to be recognized and to be able to have a conversation internally and potentially externally about what that looks like.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of the dysfunction in that space comes from a system that is, for that system to be around, we have to have that dysfunction. So it's not about not having that dysfunction. It's about paying attention to whether or not we're okay with managing it while we're accomplishing what it is that we want to accomplish.
Ooh. What kind of dysfunction are you talking about? Are you talking about the individual or like the corporate system?
Both. The individual and how like I react to that. Even like in your example of like I just want to crush it. Yeah. Like the innate dysfunction in I want to crush it is that I'm if I'm singularly minded to that, I'm probably going to overlook something else that I need, like sleep. And so there's a innate suggestion to skip that part.
It's a little bit like a Picasso moment, right? Like there I am eating yellow paint because I'm like a mad genius painter.
Yeah.
So it's like you could be a mad genius painter, but going that extreme causes some difficulty with indigestion, perhaps.
And there needs to be some sort of management of that.
Yes. A little bit of pull me back from my mania moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point. So I think the core of this, right? There's a couple things on this slide that you can look at, but I think the core of it for me is finding that switching moment. I'm working, I'm switching to self-reflection, right? I think there's a great sort of example of this in biology. We go throughout our day, and we spend a smaller portion of our day sleeping. The brain turns off all of its sense receptors, right? My eyes are closed, my ears don't hear anything as much. I'm not feeling as much in my body. I'm turning inwards to process the data that I've absorbed through the day so I can make use of it for tomorrow. If you don't sleep, you don't learn. Same thing has to happen with our emotions, where, okay, I'm emotionally disconnecting from work. I'm going to take some time to reflect on me, because otherwise, two things. One, I may be just going in the completely wrong direction, or I may be operating on some old data. If the last time I checked in with myself was when I was going to college and choosing my career, and I've still been operating off of that, my data is 10 years out of date.
Yeah.
That can be a problem. Anything to add to that?
No, I think that's great.
We're gonna get into it. All right, so here's some key strategies for achieving that. I wonder if you have any that you think of immediately. I think for me, and maybe I'll start while you kind of think of that, there's a couple here, but I kind of want to tell a story. I find my clients get beneficially frustrated with me in counseling because I'll make them sit in a feeling.
Yeah.
And they don't know what that means. That's okay. It's my job to know what that means. And so I explain it to them. And when I say sit in a feeling, they will often move very quickly from a brief encounter with what's actually happening below the surface and in their identity, right to what do I need to do about it. And I find that in those moments they're asking, well, why? Or, why is this happening? What do I do? There's so many other great questions that need to take place in order to understand what is actually going on in that environment, so
absolutely.
we can proceed, very well. I mean, if you look at, some of the people who think the best and are making the most innovations, scientists, there is a very specific and painfully slow method to processing data. If we were to look at ourselves almost like a science experiment and take that same approach of like, let's analyze the data, let's research our history, right? This is where you get into tell me
But I
about
don't
your
have time
mother.
for that.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that.
Zach, I'm going to need you to sit in those feelings for a moment,
Right.
okay? All right, I got something to say. But that's the point. Is like let's slow this process down. It doesn't have to be like, train crashing, life altering, all systems halt, but can you give me 30 minutes in this moment where we're sitting down to like, let's dig into that feeling and understand what it's saying?
What would you really say to somebody that's really resistant on that topic? I don't have time for that. Like, I literally have to do these things.
Like, shh.
Right. Well, let's do it right now.
That sounds great. Yeah. So they're really fast. I'm like, great. I think I got to look at and explain to them. It's like let's look at the track record. Okay, Zach. I was like, are you getting done what needs to get done?
Yeah.
You're sitting here in my office. I was like, listen, I appreciate that, but we tried it your way. Give me 30 minutes, okay? And I got to give a lot of empathy here, because a lot of this pushback comes from, I don't know how to do that, Jesse.
Yeah.
I don't know how to introspect. And like, that's okay. It is a skill that must be learned.
And I think it's exceptionally more difficult when it's like, I don't have these skills, but I'm used to performing at such a high level over here. And so I almost have to come down in order to learn this new skill and build it up while I'm not feeling the dopamine rush from being really good at the thing that I'm doing every day.
I watched somebody at a baseball game one time. They had their hat on backwards, and they couldn't see what was happening on the field, so they went like this. And I was like, man, it'd be really great if there was some kind of like head device that would block the sun out. But you see, I'm proving the point of like, we get so used to wearing and using and performing in a certain way.
That's great.
Probably forgot that the hat has a brim. And so that's the moment. And so it's like, if you give me 30 minutes, I'll give you hours back of your life. I do this with divorced couples too, like couples who are going through it. I'm like, listen, spend a couple hours with me. Yes, it's going to be time and money, but you know how expensive legal proceedings get in the divorce room. It'd be a lot cheaper to work it out in here than having your lawyers talk to each other. Am I right? Trade me a little bit. And so I love, on a previous slide, we talked about sort of emotional credit.
Yeah.
It's like, Are you purchasing things on debit, or are you going to pay interest on that quick fix because of the emotional credit?
Yeah.
Any other tools that you find yourself kind of using, key strategies?
To start the process?
Yeah, work-life balance.
I think that a really important thing too is to teach somebody some real grounding techniques. I think we spend far less time than we should in being and trying to be grounded. Plenty of books about that, but
Yeah, what does that mean? What's a grounding technique?
just like what you did when I was like, well, I don't have time about for this. Is just stop. And one of my favorite things for this is when you're starting this process is really just paying attention to things like your breathing, bringing your consciousness to the arch of your foot, paying attention to where your shoulders are, something like that. We don't spend a lot of time doing those things to bring us back into our bodies. And I think that before we're able to prioritize tasks or, like schedule something or reprioritize or delegate or anything like that, there's this like exhale that we have to do. That's just,
Yes.
we're going to do it right now.
I would love another.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think in that, we'll kind of get back to our presentation here, but I think in that deep breath is like, okay, let's take a deep breath. Let's look at one thing at a time. Here's a technique. How's your time management? Are you scheduling? Are you prioritizing? Are you delegating? Are the goals that you're setting for yourself manageable? Time management is a key part of this because it's easy to get caught up in the fear of deadlines, in the fear of failure, in the emotional imperatives that our clients give us when they tell us about the next crazy episode of this daytime soap opera that they live.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about setting boundaries? That might be helpful.
Yeah. So first we're kind of getting grounded. We're starting to just be able to be in the space. Then it's like, hey, we got to protect that space.
Yeah.
And as we say so much, boundaries are very different than expectations. A boundary is a statement of behavior that for myself when I am setting boundaries. An expectation is a statement of behavior about somebody else's. The examples are, my boundary is that I will do A when this external thing happens. An expectation is you are not allowed to do this behavior, or else I will insert punishment.
Yeah, it's like a threat.
Yeah.
Yeah, big difference. Big difference. Telling somebody what they can and cannot do versus, hey, listen, you're a free individual, it's a free country. But if you do that, I'm leaving. That's a boundary.
I'm not going to be here.
I'm not going to do that, right? You call me at, 12:30 p.m., 12:30 at night. I'm not picking up. I'm sleeping, all right? I got to sleep sometime. And it's like, you can wait till 9. Maybe that's not a reality, but I'm just giving an example, right?
But my boundaries is I'm not going to pick up the phone if an intern just calls me. The boundaries is if you need me, you need to shoot me a text message and then call me. And that text message, if it's an emergency, it needs to start off with 911. And no matter what I'm doing, even if it's at 12:30 in the morning, I'm going to pick up.
Yeah, they kind of know, like, don't call me. If you call me, I'm going to pick up because I assume someone's dying.
Yeah. So that's the statement of my behavior.
That's a great boundary.
And I think a lot of times people and especially attorneys don't have the preset boundaries that they need to make themselves feel the most comfortable.
Yeah. Well, boundaries take a little bit of forethought and planning.
Yeah, a lot.
And so if you're running right into chaos without that forethought and plan, it's like it's like showing up to a martial arts match without having to gone to class.
Yeah.
If you haven't practiced giving a punch, how do you expect yourself to give a punch when you're confronted with danger?
Yeah.
Same thing. When you're confronted with work-life stress, you didn't practice the techniques.
Yeah.
That's not your fault, right? You just weren't prepared. That's okay. Great news is it's something you can learn. And that's what we're here to talk about. All right. What about, is everything my responsibility to do? Should it be? What do you think?
I have that very, very famous line that a mentor of mine told me years ago.
Oh.
delegate as much as you can, and then inspect what you expect
Ooh, inspect what you expect, isn't it?
after you've delegated.
Yes. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that there's a follow-up too, because I think a lot of the pushback I get, even for myself, when it comes to delegation is like, yeah, but nobody does it like me, because all my thoughts are in my head and I know how I want it done. There is something, right? Yeah,
It might be true.
There's
It's a
something.
busy lifestyle.
Yes, but there's something really beautiful, not only in delegating, because you build a team and trust and a community around you, all driving towards a common goal. It's like sports, It's like that camaraderie you get on a sports team is very seldom rivaled. But when it comes to the business world, yes, I'm sure all the thoughts are inside of your head. With paralegals and colleagues and clients, telling them what to do. It does force you to go slower. But when you go slower, two beautiful things happen. One, you create a system for the future that you can count on and saves you time later. And then two, by making yourself slow down and delegate and communicate expectations, it forces you to refine your own concepts, ideas, and processes. If I'm going to give somebody a task, I have to sit with myself and think, well, what do I actually expect the outcome of this task to be? That moment of self-reflection may take you 10 minutes to actually type down all right, what am I actually reflecting on? Or what do I actually want to be accomplished? It helps align your goals so much better. And so that way there's a lot less wasted effort and energy. Because if we're just up in the clouds the whole time, who knows which way is up?
Yeah.
That's important. Delegation. So delegate both for your own time management and good, but also for the self-reflective part that's necessary in delegation.
Well, and what you're saying there, the key word I think is systems.
I love systems.
What that does is it creates systems that, if you do it well, maybe there's still training that the next person, let's say you have an employee, you train them, you're working with them, and then they leave the organization. Putting somebody else in that space, you're still going to need to be doing training, but every time you do that process, it's going to be less energy that you need to put into doing that, because there's a bank of knowledge. If you have that healthy system, everybody's going to be adding to that bank of knowledge, and I think that's the biggest thing that, at least in our profession, in group practices, that's the biggest thing that they're just really bad at is
counselors are silly.
Yeah. It's making it so that there's a system right there, so every time somebody new comes in, it gets better, and I have to do less work.
Yeah, and there's an emotional benefit to that for the business owner too, because then I become less afraid that someone's going to leave.
Yeah.
And I'm more open-handed with things.
Yeah.
Right? So people don't feel the pressure to stay. People don't feel, and then you don't feel resentful or angry. It's just like, yeah, all right. I mean, it's still tough. Don't get me wrong. You're not going to eliminate that. It stinks when somebody leaves the team because you got to reset. But if you got a system in place and you've delegated and you have efficient work practices, it eases up some of that tension so that sort of subconscious resentment doesn't start to build on your team.
Yeah. And I think that's the really beautiful point behind that is, for the business, my suggestion is get a coach. And for the individual, my suggestion is get a therapist, because that's where right there is going to be the biggest benefit of those two roles in your life.
Absolutely. So let's talk about when we don't do this well. What happens to us, Zach, when we don't balance our work?
You get burnt out
in our life. Yeah, big topic.
Yeah,
we have a whole other presentation on burnout.
Yeah,
I mean we go really deep into this, but I think it's important to make that mention of there are some very real emotional, psychological, physical reactions to mismanagement of a work-life balance. And I do really believe it's a balance. It's not, as much as I talk about systems, your work-life balance can't be a system. It's something that's constantly negotiated.
Yeah, and it has to be.
And it has to be, because we go through times, you have a kid, you get married, the business grows, you're opening a new branch.
You're a day older,
right?
Everything's changing.
All of those things. And so systems in business, patience, empathy with myself, and a constant conversation inside of my head, an empathetic conversation of, how are you today, Jesse? what do we need to do today to make sure that you are balancing this in a way that's authentic now? I think that groundedness that you're talking about before comes mighty handy on this topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I love the slide, the impact of chronic stress on the brain, because it's like this is the go look this stuff up, because I think that it's really, really fascinating. But everything from the hippocampus, the amygdala, prefrontal cortex have such a role that a lot of times we're thinking that we're acting from the prefrontal cortex, but we're actually acting from the amygdala, and sometimes
Thinking
we're
part,
like,
emotional part,
yeah.
amygdala. Yeah.
We think we're reacting from the hippocampus, but we're actually reacting from the amygdala. Let me think about this. What that really means is let me spiral in a negative stress cycle about this.
I'll tell you what it means for me. If I say
Right.
let me think about this, it means I'm burnt out and I don't have emotional bandwidth to make
Right.
a definitive decision.
Right.
I have no more cycles left.
So again, the amygdala, but that's just the fight or flight.
Yep.
Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
It's true. It's true.
so-
New, they added. Sometimes we just get compliant. It's not helpful. What about the body, though? Right? So it does make memory processing more difficult when we have stress and are burnt out and struggling with a balance. Our decisions become poorer. Our insight becomes poorer. Our communication becomes less effective, and we start to become more emotional, which makes sense. If I'm fighting a grizzly bear, I don't need to analyze the chess moves of a grizzly bear. I just need to run as fast as I can or hit it really hard, right? Well, not helpful when you're trying to do legal briefs, right? So same emotional responses from the brain, but not helpful there. But our body does some crazy things too. You work a lot with survivors of trauma.
Yeah.
And the body does some pretty interesting things when we go through trauma. Would you mind sharing some stories or maybe talking about that?
First, like what you're saying is so impactful, because
Yeah.
a lot of people might be listening to this and being like, well, I'm not that bad.
Yeah, we all think that.
Yeah, and yes, probably, but it's the same process. And if you're in that process, in that spiral, bragging about how you're at the beginning of that spiral versus somebody that's at the end of that spiral is not very helpful.
That's a great point.
Right?
That's a great point.
So,
Well, my head's not as much on fire as yours is, so I must be all right. Your
You're still
head's
on
still on fire. Yeah.
So like, when we talk about it from like an extreme perspective, there's so much physiological stuff that goes on because of trauma, and let's jump to that extreme real quick. Everything,
Yeah.
everything from just like the things that we do. So it's our actual body that responds negatively to stress hormones, but there's also so many things that we do to make it so that we don't have to think about those stress reactions, and so we're self-medicating, and so you have this like double negative impact, which is why the negative spiral actually becomes exponentially negative, because our body's doing this to our mind is doing this to our bodies, and we're ingesting something, we're doing something that's unhealthy, which makes the recovery even more difficult. So, yeah, I'd say don't wait until you're like, oh, I'm burnt out. You've been on fire for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, the point is not to get burnt out. I often talk about this when people talk about like resilience or boundaries, whatever, work-life balance. I don't want to create a system to where my cup gets filled with yucky things, and then I have to take this huge break and go pour it out.
Right.
I don't want to keep filling my cup with garbage and pouring it out. I would much rather just hold an umbrella, right? It's like, let's create a system where I can continue at a reasonable pace. And all those things that are not for me, that take away from my happiness and my joy, we're going to have to do some difficult things. You still got to hold the umbrella. It's still a little windy. You might get a little wet. That's life. But I'm not getting drenched. I'm not filling my cup with garbage and having to dump it. I'm able to create a sustainable system that can persist.
Yeah.
And I may still take a vacation because I want to, because that's something I want to do with my life. But When you're getting to the point where like you have to take a vacation because your blood pressure's spiking, you have indigestion problems, you got headaches, muscle tension, you go into the chiropractor and get massages every week because you just can't function, we missed something along the way. We set up our life and we missed it.
And quite frankly, all of those are different types of self-medication for our system, negative systems that we've allowed to be in our lives.
Yeah. Now, I guess the last thing I will kind of say on this, unless you got something else to add, is I find a lot of people get very angry at their bodies when it talks to them.
Yeah. That's a really great point.
And we can't create a mindset of being at war with ourselves. That will never help us through. If you are upset with your emotions, with your feelings, with your body for doing what it does, we miss something along the way. Your body's trying to say things. Your emotions are trying to say things. If you got a headache, rather than getting frustrated at your headache, be like, what is this headache telling me? Symptoms are symptoms. They are signs of a greater problem.
Yeah.
It's what mental health counselors, doctors look for. What are the symptoms? That's going to help me diagnose what's going on here so we can correct it from the source.
It's like what you're saying is like a parent going to two kids and being like, hey, I really need to get to the bottom of this. Who hit whom first? It's like, all right, we are going to sit down and we're going to argue about this until we get to the very bottom of who hit whom first. That's okay. I don't think that deals with the situation. It doesn't, as it is. It's certainly not going to be preventative, and it's actually going to probably lead to more situations like that.
Yeah.
It's probably important. I kind of want to know, but at the same time, that's not the reason why you're here.
It does probably create a good lawyer, though, because whoever can argue the best in that system wins. That one was for all y'all. But you got a point. That can't happen inside of us.
Yeah.
Where we just create this stress and tension. Okay, so if we can't do that, if we're falling apart, how do we mitigate these like stress-related impacts, especially with our body? Do you do some things physically? Right. We talked about mindset. We talked about emotions. But are there some physical things that you do to help with this work-life balance?
Yeah, I mean the first point on here is so important to me is I don't know why we're not past this in our culture, but meditation has to be this almost like religious thing.
It does get very spiritual, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I don't know why. I don't know why it needs to. Because we're just thinking about this, like how much benefit there is to meditation. And like what it is. So I'd encourage everybody to look up just what is meditation. If there's a religious context to it, look up secular meditation or whatever type of meditation is going to be beneficial to you. But I mean, I remember the first time I really, really started getting into it was when I learned that Michael Jordan was super into meditation.
I don't think that I knew that.
Yeah, like
that's pretty cool.
When he was playing basketball and he was like in his heyday, he was just like, yeah, I meditate, we meditate, we have to clear our brains out. And it's not just not thinking; it's practicing, focusing, and training your brain to pay attention to one thing that is present as a fundamental thing. There's many different types of meditation out there, but I think that's probably the biggest one. If that skill can be learned, all of the other skills are going to be so much easier. And I don't think any of the other skills make the other ones more effective than meditation does.
That's a great point, a great starting point. And a lot of these stuff on the slides may be things that you've heard before. Eat right, exercise, get some sunlight, stand up, walk. And so I'm not going to repeat those things to bore you. But instead, I kind of want to talk about some of the tricks that we use as hypnotherapists.
That's great.
For the physical stuff. The thing I think people need to understand is that we communicate to ourselves not just with our thoughts, but with our bodies.
Yes.
And with our behaviors.
More so.
I would argue more so, yes. And so think to yourself and ask these questions about what am I communicating to my body by the actions that I'm taking. If I'm skipping meals, that is a suggestion to me that my work is more important than my sustenance, right? I'll give you an easy one. Like for me, I make sure to, when I wake up in the morning, I go use the bathroom, I get a drink of water before I start looking at my phone. That sets me up with the mindset of my life is for me, not for everybody else.
Yeah.
And so that's a suggestion. I also very much enjoy showers, right? So I may not need one, but I need that mental 5 minutes to reset when I get home from the office to take a shower, because I need to signal to my body that we are transitioning into home personal life mode. Don't actually need one, but I need some kind of symbolic transition. And so I do that very physically. There's a lot of things like that, right? Like what shoes am I wearing? What clothes am I wearing? That puts me in the right mindset. I was telling a lot of people during COVID, I would tell them, if you have to work from home, make sure that you have a separate space, you dress in your work clothes, and you put on your cologne or perfume that you typically use, because that is all signaling to you mental transition. That's going to help with work-life balance, because if it gets muddy, your brain's going to get muddy. I didn't show up for work during COVID in pajama pants.
No.
My brain couldn't handle it, man.
Well, and that's in all transparency, that's the reason why I don't like working from home, because I do like all of those things that you just listed there to be the same no matter where I am.
Yeah.
And so there's less transition, and then there's less ability to maintain that balance.
Super important. Super important. All right, moving on. Some mental and physical health considerations. There are some real things that your body needs, and you kind of want to think about those, because, again, with this concept of being muddy, when we start to fall off emotionally, right, that can cause us to engage in some problematic physical behaviors.
Yeah.
When we fall off physically, it can cause us to engage in some problematic mental behaviors. If you don't sleep, if you don't eat right, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're going to feel depressed when you may not actually be depressed.
Yeah, or probably not.
Right. You may start to feel anxious when you're actually not anxious. You may not have, and listen, talk with your counselor. I'm just speaking generalities. You may not have an eating problem. You may just not have gotten sleep, and we know that lack of sleep causes people to reach for processed foods that are not actually healthy for their body to function. And so I want you to kind of think about this, like being active and the way that it affects your emotions, the way that your emotions affects being active.
It's going to bring the understanding that balance is going to bring a lot of balance to these work and life.
Very much agreed. You have anything else to add on nutrition? I mean, I feel like nutrition is a little bit different from our scope, but I can just say for me, that it's made a huge difference. Increasing the right number of calories that I take in a day, and then for me, cutting out sugar.
Yeah.
It made a huge difference. I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that it's incredibly important, and I think that just along the same lines as I'd recommend a therapist, I'd recommend a nutritionist to
great.
and not one that's just going to say like this is what is the right thing to do, but to take into consideration how you're feeling and stuff like that. And that even gives the suggestion, like you were talking about earlier, as far as like what are the suggestions that we're giving to ourselves. And I think a nutritionist is a great one to prove to ourselves, our unconscious minds and our bodies, that we're willing to do that work.
I very much agree.
Yeah.
So moving on from the body a little bit, and getting a little bit more practical again, do you have some favorite techniques, like real world, can use them today, that you like to give people to help manage their stress when it comes to work-life balance?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is hypnotic anchors, and how to...
Oh, yeah, you're going to unpack that.
Yeah,
That's a good word.
A hypnotic anchor is any time that you are, or there is a thing that is a very small thing, like a zipped file on the computer that contains, when it is unlocked, a whole bunch more information, but is kind of packed away very, very nice and neatly.
Compressed.
Yeah, like not to get into any of these because that is definitely not the scope of this conversation.
Okay.
But things like religion, politics.
Oh yeah, that's not in scope.
Right? Those are things that are hypnotic anchors for pretty much everybody. Is that all of the trauma, all of the ideas, all of the emotions are all in that one thing that we're not thinking about until somebody brings up something that's political. And as soon as they bring it up, all of that stuff just rushes to the surface, and I like thinking of an anchor like a buoy or something like that. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
it's something that we put out way out in the ocean to signify this is exactly where the space is that you want to go scuba diving, and so we can go to that place very easily. Rather than needing to search for it, especially search for it underwater. It's a much quicker process to just skim along the surface until you get there, find the exact place, then go down. And some of my favorite hypnotic anchors are creating one with a doorway or something along those lines.
I love the doorway one.
I'm going into my office and I'm going to close the door and have some time and space for me. I'm in the doorway. I say, come up with some sort of script or something like that to bring me back to presence, that I just got out of a meeting in somebody else's office and now I'm coming back to my office. The doorway to leaving the office or coming into your home is just paying a lot of respect. In a lot of cultures, there are things about doors that are very special or even sacred. And we make the doorways that way in order to symbolize, like the hypnotic anchor, where we're going, and to take a moment to pay attention to where we're going, crossing this threshold.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So hypnotic anchors, I think they're great. Other things that I do are leave hypnotic anchors around my computer or my desk in my office. Things that are there to remind me to get grounded, to be mindful, and to take a step back from that spiral, jump out of it, and pay attention to something else.
Yeah, you're making me think just how key of a symptom it is to trauma that people will experience disassociation.
Oh, yeah.
And there's kind of two types of dissociation: depersonalization and derealization. Depersonalization means I don't feel like myself. I don't feel connected with who I am as a human. And derealization means that I feel disconnected from reality. I feel like real life isn't real life. And that happens when things become so intense and so stressful that my mind can't handle it anymore, and so it starts to detach from reality. We've all experienced that. It's a coping mechanism. And so having those moments and those physical things that you can do to reconnect with reality, kind of reorient yourself to that guiding mindset, is really helpful, right? If that's a doorway, reminding yourself that every doorway is a new opportunity for you to enjoy life, right? Maybe it's a picture of your kid, right, or your partner next to your computer. Remind, hey, at the end of the day, those are the people that matter to me most. The email who's mad at me is okay. Right? Whatever it is, but just to bring yourself back and be like, it's okay. Key stuff. And I think on this, a really good grounding anchor to bring people back is relationships.
Yeah.
And I think there's many types of relationships that are important. Some add stress. So we're not talking about those right now. We're talking about the life-giving ones. And maybe that's your partner. Maybe that's a friend. Maybe that's a mentor or a colleague. Maybe that's your mental health counselor, right? Maybe that's your dietitian who, do I really need to keep seeing my dietitian? Probably not, but it's the only hour to myself I get in my week to, talk about some stuff and just get things off my chest. So yeah, I keep seeing them. That's great. Seeking support is important because we can't see what's in our own blind spots. It's important.
Yeah.
Are there some ways that you recommend people reach out for support? I mean, the obvious is like go talk with a counselor, to see what the blind spots are.
Yeah. Well, we started this whole conversation off with talking about like what are our actual goals and what is it that we actually want, and it's having, from the most fundamental space, it's having the space to actually invite somebody into our lives that has some of those same goals.
Yeah.
That's kind of the foundation of partnership, is maybe that's not the same personal goals, but setting those relational goals, and having healthy relationships at work and at home is going to benefit the work-life balance. There's a natural transition there when those goals are different or when they're the same and we're mindful of it.
Yeah. Man, but Zach, what if I don't have healthy relationships at home or with my colleagues. Like, I'm sitting here watching this video, and it's like, I do feel very alone.
I mean, that's, I think, where the work needs to start. You're not going to have work-life balance without starting to work on those things.
Yeah.
I think we're innately relational people.
You have
beings.
recommendations where to start looking? Because, like, you know, the research is very clear, like, presently. I mean, I'm genuinely asking because it's tough. The research is clear that the number of people who can't claim to have any close friends is growing. And the isolation that people feel is on the rise. And so as connected as we seem to be, the nature of real, impactful relationships, well, seems to be dwindling. It's a tough question.
I think that it's kind of a, not from you, but the construct is kind of a trick question, though.
Yeah, unpack this for me.
We have a problem because we are resistant to that because we don't want to get hurt. Not because we are not good at that. I think that when we take a step away from being in that energy of, like, I'm a product of a system that demands these things from me, we are actually and naturally good at building connections with other people. So I think that the question becomes less, how do I do that, and how do I stop preventing myself from being good at doing that?
And you think one of the key components of that is fear?
Yeah, I do. Fear, resistance, acculturation, grooming, to use some really big words about it.
Big words, yeah.
Is like if all my value is in producing something for somebody else, I'm not going to be able to have those authentic relationships. If all my identity is to perform for somebody else, eventually my performance is going to be not good enough for the people that are closest to me.
Yeah, that's the part that I think comes to my mind when I think about that question is, if my identity has become totally enraptured by my work, and then I don't have an opportunity to make relationships outside of it.
Exactly.
Because then the only way that I can interact with other people and feel a sense of camaraderie is by working more. And that's not the solution. So my suggestion is, I tell people this all the time, I'm like, pick something that you're not good at.
Yeah.
Because you know what people love is teaching others about their topic of interest. So, like, I'm going to go pick up some nerdy card game or go play golf. I don't like golf. I'll go play golf. But you know what golfers love? Teaching you how to improve your swing.
They do.
That's the fastest way to make a friend. I tell you what, it's humbling, right? So, you know, maybe don't take the big client out for the golf game.
Or maybe.
Trying to do that. But, like, sure, do that. Or, like, I don't know how to play basketball, but I tell you what, you know what people like to play basketball do? Teach you how to shoot. And so there's a lot of opportunities, but I think you're right. I think it's that fear of being seen, that fear of learning, that fear of growing together with another person that keeps us from these things. There are many opportunities, but it's got to be real world. It's got to be humble and honest. I can't hide behind the credentials on the wall, behind the letters, behind my name. I got to be a little bit of just a person, and that's a little scary.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's a little scary. I may have the ultimate solution for you, though, before we wrap up. What if I just talk to AI? AI could be my friend, right? Be my therapist, too.
One of my interns just asked me about that because she was so worried about AI taking our jobs.
Genuinely?
Yeah. Yeah. And my immediate response to it was like, I'm actually in the process of creating an AI bot of myself.
Yes.
To do just coaching, not the mental health side of things. And they were very, very scared of that. And what we're talking about today is precisely the reason why I'm not afraid of that yet. Because so much of work-life balance is based on the connections that we have or don't have, I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of it in that way. Maybe in this like weird Terminator kind of way, I'm a little bit more afraid.
Definitely a little dystopian. Yeah. I'm there.
But no, that's that is not real connection.
No, no. I think in its current iteration, it does make up things that aren't true.
Yeah.
There's still limitations with accuracy, and so that can be very scary when you're talking about things as personal as your feelings and your mental health. It also, the way that those models are created tend to be, they want to increase user engagement, so they tend to be a bit of an echo chamber. You know, whatever emotion you kind of present initially with your query, it's going to reflect that back as a way to fake empathy with you, and so that's going to lead it down the wrong direction, where with one of my clients I might engage with empathy and empathize with them, but say, hey, I actually totally disagree with you. I think that this may be a different way to sort of look at it. I certainly think that artificial intelligence will augment what we do as counselors, and probably in the legal profession too. I'm sure of it. But I think if we have that deep fear, we're missing a little bit of the underlying mindset that I think is important here. So no, AI is not a substitute for real relationships. You need to be silly, make mistakes, and interact with some real humans.
And that's where vulnerability is.
Oof, that's where vulnerability is.
And those real relationships is where I would say work-life balance actually, that they are the soil that work-life balance needs to be planted in.
Yes, real relationships. Yeah, because that's how we grow. It's that real relationship. AI models don't develop in the same way that humans do.
Yeah.
No.
And a lot of times our office workspaces don't either.
Oh boy, you got that right. You got that right. Well, listen, if you're looking for some real human connections, reach out. We'd love to help. There are a lot of other people who are going through it just like you. And so over at Trauma Focused Hypnotherapy, we've got a community. We've got some people. There's a lot of stuff, resources that are there. This educational course is just one of them. But don't let this be the end of it for you. Find where your spectrum, where your balance is going to be, and then make those changes that are going to allow you to live a fulfilling and happy life. Anything to add?
Oh, that's great.
Until we see you next time. Bye.
Bye.